WRKS Pickens Jackson.
Hey, what do you say we sing a driving song?
There's not going to be any singing around here. Just
real sports.
On the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Oh, this is going to be sweet.
And it's all right here, right now on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
th day of January 2023. Welcome in. It is the afternoon drive. Champion the Chair Sports Maven on a Tuesday. And we are brought to you by Maristar Casino. Get out and play today. We'll have Keith Hardy later on this week, getting you set for the big game next week as you got all kinds of stuff, college basketball, the NBA, and more to play at Ameristar. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. ecmalone.com is their website. 8337 Malone, commercial residential roofing done right with Malone Roofing Services. And you can always text us on the Cowboy Maloney's text line, 601-885-3776. Make your house a home today with Cowboy Maloney's. 13 locations around the state of Mississippi. Online at cowboymaloneys.com. We're also brought to you by Clinton Body Shop, 2 locations to serve you in Clinton and Richland. OEM factory certified, all the manufacturers you trust at Clinton Body Shop. We'll have David Murray at 3:30. Mississippi State Report, also Kelley Ford, thelions.com, 4:30 to 5, and Mike Grace at 5:15. All right, what level do you have to set those ears on?
I guess about a 3.
And what was I doing?
You were usually at about 5.
So is that a significant change or?
It's a good change.
It's a good change. So I had to get hearing aids just because I've had some issues. You know, I'm turning into Helen Keller. Eyes and ears. It still sounds a little funny, just a little funny, but that's probably on my end. But so we were able to bring that down just a little bit and not just. Matt Wyatt told me he can put the headphones over his ears and hear, like, when he comes in here, he don't want to put them on his ears. He pulls them out. So that was a pretty good change.
Yeah, I think so.
All right, we'll move along and see what that does for us. All right, the NCAA has decided it's going to wage war on college sports. Have you seen this? Tennessee now in trouble.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to wage war, and I don't know that it's going to do anything. Florida State got put on a, quote, probation a couple weeks ago. The NCAA is now investigating Tennessee for what are believed to be alleged major violations related to NIL dealings. The case centers around quarterback Nico. How do we say his name? Iamaleava, the number 2 quarterback in the class of 2023. We'll get into the story and see what we can find out about this whole deal. The Ralph Russo reports University of Tennessee Chancellor sent a letter to Charlie Baker. This the astute president. You know what's interesting about this? This is so interesting to me. And this has rogue politician written all over it. You know, rogue politicians, we got a lot of them on both sides of the, quote, aisle. They get in a point of position. They say all this stuff. We're going to change this. We're going to make this better. We're going to hold hands. And then they start throwing the gauntlet in the book at people. That's what Charlie Baker's done. He takes over as the NCAA president, a defunct organization. He puts this proposal for change in these subdivisions. Not many people in the SEC or the ACC or these other big power conferences are buying off on it. So what does he start doing? Penalizing people. Florida State. Florida's under investigation. Now Tennessee. So you're going to put the whole world under investigation? This is very interesting. University of Tennessee Chancellor sent a letter to Charlie Baker regarding the NCAA investigation into potential rules violations by the university. And as Ralph Russo says, the first paragraph kind of sums it up. Dear President Baker, the leaders of intercollegiate athletics owes owes it to its student athletes and their families to establish clear rules and to act in their best interest. Instead, 2.5 years of vague and contradictory NCAA memos, emails, and guidance about name, image, and likeness has created extraordinary chaos that student athletes and institutions are struggling to navigate. In short, the NCAA has failed and is failing. There you go. He kind of nailed it right there. You know, if you go back, let me see if I can find this real quick in the stack. What was that, 2021? If I go back to the one sheet, and I think this is it, 2021, the NCAA put a one sheet out that had about 5 bullet points on name, image, and likeness. You remember this? It's very vague. Very, very, very vague. And there wasn't much to it. There wasn't much to it at all. As it says, NCAA adopts interim name, image, and likeness. And they never made it full. You know, it was never the deal. But again, it's 1, 2, 3, 4 bullet points. The policy provides the following guidance to college athletics recruits and families and member schools. Individuals can engage in name, image, and likeness activities that are consistent with the law of the states where the school is located. States started passing laws and doing this and doing that. Still getting penalized. College and universities are responsible for determining whether those activities are consistent with the state law. College athletes who attend a school in a state without an NIL law can engage in this type of activity without violating NCAA rules related to name, image, and likeness. This is back in 2021. Individuals can use a professional service provider for NIL activities. Collectives, agents, do it all. Student athletes should report NIL activities consistent with state laws and school and conferences requirements to their school. Quote, today, NCAA members voted to allow college athletes to benefit from name, image, and likeness opportunities no matter where their school is located, said Division I Board of Directors Chair Dennis Truath, president at Texas State. With this interim solution in place, we will continue to work with Congress to adapt federal legislation to support student athletes. They're still working with Congress. They're still under this temporary memorandum. Yet they feel like they can penalize these schools. This is extremely interesting. Charlie Baker has basically taken up arms against his schools, is what he's done, because they don't want to buy into the crap that he's throwing at them. Later on, we'll tell you most points scored in the Super Bowl based on players' last college attended. This is some good stuff from Brett McMurphy. Also, the Big 12 schedule is out. I want to look at this a little bit. You know, the Big 12 is probably going to be the funnest conference to watch, believe it or not, this year. It is going to be like the Wild Wild West because it is so wide open, and I want to get into some of these games. Also, I don't expect you to comment on this. Dan Wetzel puts his first Super Bowl article out today. Welcome to Taylor's version of the Super Bowl. It's there. Welcome to Taylor's version of the Super Bowl. 601-885-3776 if you want to shoot us a text. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Let's see here. White Denzel. I have $100. That if the Chiefs win, Kelsey proposes to Taylor Swift on the podium. The play-by-play from Romo and Nance would be worth it. I don't know if he's going to propose to her or not. Here's the deal. They're not going to be together this time next year. Do you believe they will be together? I don't think they will. It's not going to happen. Brooksy MacJack. Jake is so old. Chris, you're right there with me. Aren't me and Chris are right there together age-wise anyway.
Yeah, well, but Chris doesn't need aids for hearing, and he's still out there throwing baseballs around, and you're just sitting behind that desk all day. And Chris is coming at you.
Now you make me feel... See, I got work to do. So what are you saying? I need to challenge Chris Brooks in some sort of a physical competition?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Let's see here. A couple more things that are out there we'll get to. The legal battle between the ACC and Florida State continues to grow more contentious. Both parties have now filed amended complaints, FSU's in Florida State Court and the ACC in North Carolina State Court. FSU now alleges the ACC engaged in self-dealing. So we will get into this as Florida State and the ACC, they have just taken the gloves off, and they've decided we're going to fight. We're going to fight to the death is what's going to happen. So Florida State has now told the ACC to get in the ring. The Los Angeles Chargers have agreed to a contract with Joe Hortz to be their general manager, so the Chargers have now new GM and new football coach. And Ohio State defensive back Caleb Downs, if you want to hear how wild the transfer portal is, just like a little snippet real quick, he was at Alabama, and the day that he entered the transfer portal, he had 102 phone calls. Can you believe that? 102 phone calls the day that he entered the transfer portal. Also, DJ Durkin will be Auburn's new defensive coordinator, who worked with Hugh Freeze, or I believe way back when. I'll have to clarify that. But anyway, he's now with Hugh Freeze and the defensive coordinator for the Auburn Tigers. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line inside the Ameristar Casino Studios on a Tuesday. David Murray will join us here in about 15 minutes. Kelly Ford, 4:30 to 5, and Mike Grace at 5:15.
Nothing glitch dead.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And welcome back to the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's talking about anything and everything that's Mississippi sports.
No, great afternoon.
Right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online worldwide on the Zone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Malone Roofing Services. ecmalone.com is their website. 8337 Malone Commercial, residential roofing done right with Malone Roofing Services. David Murray will join us in 15 minutes as we'll talk Mississippi State sports. Let's see here. Unnamed texter, tell the NCAA to stick it. They created this through their own mismanagement from the beginning of NIL. They absolutely did. That's why I always hold on to that 2001 legislation. They created this mess. They absolutely created this mess, and I'm going to get back into that. With the schedules now coming out in most all of the conferences for college football for 2024, as 247sports.com reports, the implications are massive for, obviously, tons of teams, and you've got some unbelievable games out there. Like, you know, Brad Crawford kind of ranks his top 10 games. Michigan, Ohio State is one. Georgia, Texas, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Michigan, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, Georgia, Ole Miss. He's got Ole Miss in two of them. Ole Miss, LSU, Clemson, Florida State, and Oklahoma, Texas. Texas in three of them. Georgia in three of them. Alabama in one of them. Michigan in three. Ohio State in two. Speaking of Brad Crawford, college football's 24 most important games he gets into. We may chalk through some of those. And I know what Brad's doing here. He's going through the schedules, saying, hey, this could be, you know, order of importance for games. Speaking of games, the ACC football schedules are out as well. And, you know, when you talk about this college football playoff and who's going to do what, you get out here and you look, say, for instance, Clemson, you ask yourself, is Clemson back? And, again, I don't think Clemson is back. As a matter of fact, I think Clemson is sliding backwards still, especially the more I chalk through data to get into 2024. It looks like, after spending some time over the weekend in the ACC, Clemson is not fast-tracking backwards, but they are sliding backwards. They'll open up the year against Georgia in Atlanta. Georgia will be the favorite. Now, obviously, if they could get a win over Georgia, that would be huge, but I think they'll take a loss. They play App State and then get a bye week. NC State, Stanford. They have to go to Florida State and Wake. Virginia, bye week. Louisville, at Virginia Tech, at Pitt. The Citadel in South Carolina. I mean, this is still probably a 9-3 or 10-2 team, and they'll have enough on the resume to get into the playoff. It's just, will they? You look at Florida State, Georgia Tech. They'll play in Ireland. They'll come back and play Boston College on a Monday night. They'll get a bye week. They play Memphis, Cal, at SMU, host Clemson, get a bye week, go to Duke, go to Miami. They actually play Duke on a Friday night. North Carolina at Notre Dame, open week, Charleston Southern in Florida. So for all that Florida State did this past year, I don't think that they're going to go undefeated. They have to play at Miami, at Notre Dame, at SMU, believe it or not, could get interesting. And if you look at, for instance, we talked yesterday about the Miami Hurricanes, that this could be, this could be a pop-off point for the Hurricanes if things go right. At Florida, Florida A&M, Ball State, at South Florida, Virginia Tech on a Friday night, at California, then they get a bye week. At Louisville, Florida State, Duke, at Georgia Tech, bye week, Syracuse, or Wake Forest, and then Syracuse. So those are just some of the games there for the ACC. The real Eric. Brooks versus Jake in a boxing match. Winner has forever bragging rights. He wants me and Chris. I don't know that me and Chris could go around in boxing. Do you think me and Chris can make it through a round? I'm going to need to put in about 6 months worth of work if we're going to do this. Y'all going to let me prep for this. I don't know if I could do that for like one round right now. All right, let's see. Let me go back into this Tennessee story real quick, which is highly fascinating. Tennessee football under NCAA investigation for alleged NIL violations involving Nico Iamaleava, whatever his name is. Tennessee football is under investigation for, quote, major alleged violations. CBS Sports' Dennis Dodd confirmed Tuesday the Vols are being looked at as a potential repeat violator, given recent sanctions that came as a result of the Jeremy Pruitt tenure. All wins from the 2019-20 season were vacated. The new case centers around the signing of former five-star quarterback Nico Iamaleava, who inked a then-record NIL contract with Spirey Sports Group, which is Tennessee's primary collective. The Vols have not received a formal notice of allegations, an NOA, from the NCAA, according to Dodd. Last summer, the NCAA disciplined Tennessee after Pruitt, who was in charge with violating head coaching responsibility rules, and 3 others faced unethical conduct allegations for providing false and misleading information during their previous investigation. The initial case included 18 Level 1 violations and more than 200 individual infractions involving recruiting and violations, primarily payments to prospects, players and their families totaling approximately $60,000, according to the NCAA release. Tennessee's former staff also hosted prospects on visits during NCAA-mandated dead periods amid the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. The Vols have since been under the direction of head coach Josh Heupel. He's 27-12 since taking over Tennessee in 2021. Heupel went 9-4 this past season. Iamaleava is set to become the Vols' starting quarterback this year after spending his freshman year behind Joe Milton. In 5 games, he went 28 of 45 for 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. Quote, I think he raises the ceiling on that offense, said one scouting director. But that's really all we have on this. You know, if you go over here and look at Ross Dellinger was talking about this, I believe, just a little bit. Let me go over here to his space and see what he might have on this. I thought that he had, Per Adam Sparks, UT administrators met with the NCAA enforcement on Monday to discuss the allegations against the school. Chancellor Donde Plowman chided the organization in a letter. Tennessee is expected to vehemently fight against these allegations. Quote, we appreciate your staff listening to our arguments and are agreeing to elevate and evaluate them, Plow said in an email. The NCAA's allegations are factually untrue and procedurally flawed. Moreover, it's intellectually dishonest for the NCAA enforcement staff to pursue infraction cases as if student athletes have no NIL rights. So, I mean, that's the thing. What are they alleging? What is considered wrong? Because right now, everything is on the board. This whole thing with the NCAA is fascinating. Rebel Godfather. Oh, no, we ain't doing that. We ain't doing that, Rebel Godfather. 601-885-3776 if you want to give us a call on the, give us a text on the Cowboy Maloney's text line. College football's 24 most important games. Again, a lot of these are chalked through here. Very, very interesting games. You know, LSU plays USC September 1st in Las Vegas. This will be a bounce back for somebody. I mean, LSU didn't have a bad year. Anytime you have the Heisman Trophy winner on your team, you didn't have a bad year. But what does Brian Kelley's team look like? Lincoln Riley, again, there's a lot of questions on Lincoln Riley's team. So that'll be a highlight game on September 1st in Las Vegas. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier, and Miller Moss taking over for Lincoln Riley, both coming off fantastic performances during the bowls and each having multiple years in their respective offensive systems. And you would expect probably a lot of points in that ball game. Give the fans what they want. Now, I don't think the fans really want to see that. Alabama plays Wisconsin September 14th. This will be a big test, believe it or not, for a new Alabama staff, a new Alabama team. Obviously, they're bringing back some of the same faces. But this trip to Wisconsin for Caleb DeBoer with a matchup against Luke Fickell, it could be really fun. And, of course, Luke Fickell trying to get Wisconsin going in the right direction. This past year, Wisconsin, not the year that they anticipated, as there they are. A very lackluster year for Wisconsin, 7-6, and there were some games in there that they had a chance to win, but that offense kind of churned through. This is a new offense for them, going from ground and pound into some sort of wide open type style. Now, a lot of people like to say air raid, but it's not technically the air raid. So that's a big matchup for Luke Fickell and Kalen DeBoer. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. We're brought to you by Madison PTS. Head over to their website today, ptsports.training. That's ptsports.training, or call 601-898-1828. Train your pitchers, baseball players, softball players, and more with Madison PTS. David Murray on Mississippi State PTS.
Okay, we're back.
I'm ready.
It's more of the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's
Live.
and local on Jackson Sports Authority, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by our friends at Capital Orthopedic, online at capitalortho.com. Same-day appointments can be made at capitalortho.com. Flowood, Madison, Clinton, Brookhaven, Hazelhurst, and Kosciuszko. Move better, live better, and be better with Capital Orthopedic, 601-987-8200 at Capital Orthopedic. And, of course, they also offer walk-in urgent care services. So, a sports injury or sudden mishap won't hold you up from your active lifestyle. Go to capitalortho.com. David Murray coming up here in a bit. We'll tee him up, talk Mississippi State sports. Kelley Ford, 4:30 to 5. And Mike Grace coming in at 5:15. All right, let's see here. Some other stuff that's out there as we move along again. Florida and Tennessee are under an NCAA investigation. And, will they end in sanctions like Florida State or nothing, will anything come of it? The NCAA convention a few weeks ago, NCAA's Mark Hicks said that he was focused on tampering and inducements, had screenshots of coaches, collective tampering, and, player tampering. So we'll see what happens with this. We'll get David's thought on this as well. Again, we'll go through this Big 12 schedule, as it looks pretty interesting. I'm going to tell you, it's going to be an interesting league to follow this year in the Big 12. Right now, talking Mississippi State sports, David Murray on your radio. 247sports.com, Gene's page, as we move through a Tuesday. David, welcome in. How are you?
Well, if you hear anything in the background that sounds suspicious, I'm not in downtown Jackson. I'm out at the Starkville Gun Club. So
very
there's
good.
Some shotguns in the background, and I'm on the pistol range, totally frustrating myself, turning money into noise. But I've got eye surgery coming up in February, so maybe that'll fix that.
Very good, very good. Got to stay sharp, David. I like that. Speaking of staying sharp, Mississippi State men's and women's basketball. Let's go first to the women. Your thoughts? Obviously, a big win, for that program. And you look at this program who's trying to turn that corner and get back relevant in the SEC and nationally. And boy, they are heading in the right direction. Yeah,
great win last night, and great how they did it too, because LSU with Angel Reese, arguably one of the best players in the country, really where the state was. I mean, you hold her to 20 points, feel like it's a victory because Jessica Carter and a couple of backups were able to frustrate her offensively. Now, Carter didn't play great on the offensive end. I thought that was going to cost the Dogs at the end, but it didn't. You had girls like Jacayla Jordan really raise her game. A Miracle Shepherd, when she took over, State was able to handle LSU's physical approach in the backcourt, get the ball up, beat the press. do some things and just get them into an offense. And State just went toe-to-toe. And the first time all SEC season, they won a third quarter. And that set the stage. They held on at the end. LSU gave the best shot. And now Sam Purcell's Dogs, they're probably still celebrating today, and why not? But that put them back in position for NCAA tournament, obviously, but also for a better finish in the SEC. So a big confidence boost for that team, which really came at the right time and right place.
David Murray talking Mississippi State Sports, Tuesday edition of the program. Make sure to follow him on X. Check him out at genespage247sports.com. Same can be said for the guys who got a big win over the weekend, now 2 wins in January against top 10 teams in a very cluttered SEC stand. You look at the standings, it is absolutely cluttered top to bottom. It
really is. And by the way, State has, I believe, the 5th best net ranking in the SEC as of today. They fell a spot overnight. I don't know how I guess that's more a reflection of how the calculations are done. They went to number 37 in the net today going into tonight's game in Oxford. Ole Miss is something like 57, 58, somewhere in there. So a chance for State to get another RPI, NIT boost, whatever you want to call it. And, of course, going to Alabama this weekend. Last week you talked about the fact that the net was great, but you had to have W's. And when 2 of your W's against teams that are not only top 10 in the rankings, but top 10 in the net, you're back on track. Now, you still got to win some games, but keep in mind, Jake, of State's first 7 SEC games, 6 of those teams are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the SEC standings right now. The schedule after Alabama loosens up. I think 4 of the 5 games after that are teams in either the bottom half or even the bottom third of the conference standings. So if Chris Jansen Club can just navigate this week on the road, and they have yet to score a true road game, then they can really do some damage once they get into February.
David, speaking of February, coming up here in a couple of weeks, we talked a little bit about it last week. Baseball right here on the horizon now. Mississippi State set to open up season here coming up February 16th, like a lot of people. Are the expectations for this club? I mean, what kind of saves face for Chris Lemonis this year? Is it just getting to postseason play? What do you think that watermark is for this program this year?
I think the watermark is hosting a first-round regional. Now, that's going to require, obviously, a serious upgrade on what they've done the last couple of years. We talked to about 6 of the players as well as Coach Lemonis, and we had a chance to watch several scrimmages. Mike Nemeth doing a great job covering each of those, providing statistics as well. I think the offense is going to be fine. Just watching them, they're hitting the ball well, and not just hitting, but they're making really good contact. I don't see a lot of cheap outs by the offense in these scrimmages, no matter who's at the plate. Pitching still taking shape. There's just a lot of roles that are going to be determined, maybe not even determined by the start of opening day. It could be well into SEC season before they exactly figure out what the best roles for certain pitchers are. They've got a lot of arms. The arms are healthy. Getting people like Stone Simmons back is really going to be a boost to that lineup. You see Nate Dome now finding his niche. We wrote about him today on Gene's page. Defensively, they should be better, but I haven't seen it in the first couple of scrimmages. Now, part of that is they're playing a lot of guys in a lot of different positions, but I think they really need to raise their defensive game in support of that pitching because the offense, I believe, is going to be solid.
David, I want to shift gears and get your thoughts on what's going on with the NCAA. And it looks like new NCAA president, the new president has decided he wants to wage war against, I guess, his teams. And you look at the, Florida State going on probation, Florida on, under investigation. Now today, Tennessee under investigation for quote unquote NIL, illegal NIL activities. And you go back and you look in 2001. To what the NCAA guidelines were for quote unquote a temporary order till they could get to Congress. Now that hasn't happened. It just seems like Charlie Baker in the NCAA. This almost acts almost like I guess you could say a mad child at their kids, so to speak. And Tennessee kind of lashed back about that today.
I think it is a desperate claim for relevancy in today's college football. And believe me, I'm not one of those persons that just bashes the NCAA because remember, the NCAA is the voting body. It's not the people in Indianapolis, although they're the ones who pursue investigations and have mishandled so many things for so many years now. I don't think they're ever going to rein in NIL. In fact, Jake, I've talked to some coaches, administrators, and others, just mostly off the record. Nobody wants to be quoted on it just yet. NIL is just going to have to shake itself out. There's going to be a ton of wasted money on players. You may see that in Mississippi State basketball. A good investment in a player who is no longer on the team. That's going to happen everywhere. And coaches really can't predict how that's going to play out. You've got to get the guys and hope they make it, but what if they don't? I think fans eventually will be more targeted in what they do in the NIL after wasting a lot of money on a lot of guys who either can't play or when they do play, go somewhere else. Congress cannot fix this. Congress can't fix itself, so I don't want them getting involved in college football as well. Ultimately, of course, we've talked often, it will be the breakaway of major college football. NCAA, quite a few people there will say, good riddance. We don't want to mess with them anyway. We'll have FCS football. We'll have the basketball, which makes all our money anyway, the tournament sports, and let football go its own way. Again, I think that will be around the end of the decade at the earliest. But I just think they're wasting a lot of time and energy chasing things that have been in the works for years. It's too little, it's too late, and it only makes them look even worse in the process.
Yeah, and you know, to your point, David, on that basketball front, I mean, who's to say that, you know, the right conferences, the SEC, the Big Ten, if the power players say, hey, we're pulling out and we're going to do our own thing, I mean, they could start their own basketball tournament and take that from them as well.
They could, and the fact that I really believe with the way media markets are heading, you see Disney, Fox really reevaluating where they spend money, CBS now backing off from the SEC and others. There's going to be a big shakeout, but not, I think, until the end of the decade. Although, you know, I often quote or semi-quote the late, sometimes great Hunter S. Thompson when he wrote way long ago in a book mostly about politics. He said, you know, all this sports stuff, he's a big NFL gambling fan. It's not going to matter if the Russians fire a missile, or what if the Chinese fire a missile? So a lot of this stuff is just going to shake out over time, over economics, and the NCAA is wasting its time and energy doing this. And as far as what Mississippi State and other schools do, just go recruit, go get athletes, go play football, basketball, play under the rules, and let the world develop around them. You can't stop it. You really can't even predict it. Leave that for people like Greg Sankey, the conference commissioners, to work that out. And speaking of recruiting, Jeff Levy and staff are on a roll. It's not just this 24 team that they've already put together. I think it's like 45% of the roster will be new. They are whole hog into 2025 recruiting already. And in fact, I was talking to the PR director. He said he may have seen the coach just a handful of times since signing day in December because he and the staff have all been out on the road. They didn't take any holidays. They've been recruiting. And I think it's going to pay off long-term for Mississippi State as they really dive into this new era, not just NIL, because you still got to go out and sign players, especially high school players here in Mississippi.
David Murray, kind enough to give us some time, take a break from his gun range activities, talking Mississippi State sports. David, appreciate your time. Enjoy the rest of your range session, sir. We'll do it again next week.
Well, if I don't get any better, let's just say, what the heck. But, you know, like some people say about fishing and other things, a bad day at the range can be better than a good day at work sometimes. But, no, there's a lot of good things to work on at Gene's page right now. Of course, Justin Frommer's going to be in Oxford tonight for the big showdown with Ole Miss. And Mike's and Steve reporting from the scrimmage on baseball. A lot still happening, and in fact, it's about to pick up. The busiest time of our year is opening day of baseball season through the spring football game. That 2 months has something of everything with Bulldogs and Lady Bulldogs and basketball. We got a lot to report on and a lot to work on, and you know, we get paid to cover state sports. I can't think of a better deal that this farm boy could have ever gotten.
Very good. David, I appreciate your time. We'll talk next week. Thanks so much.
Jake, Ben, good to hear from you.
We're brought to you by BCI. Go to bcipeople.com, 601-427-4185. Get your managed IT services in order, data backup solutions as well, and ransomware protection with BCI. Back in a bit.
A little smarter.
This is the home of the Chuck Oliver Show every weekday from 10 till noon on Mississippi's live and local sports authority. And where? We're back to Jake Wimberly with the afternoon drive on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Appreciate David Murray jumping in. Find him at genespage.com, 247sports.com. We'll get that up on the podcast. Just find it on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, all the podcasting platforms. Just search Jake Wimberly or The Jake Wimberly Show, and we'll get those interviews up. Yesterday's show is already up, ready for you to go. You can get over there and check that out. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Make your house home today with Cowboy Maloney's 13 locations around the state. Online at cowboymaloney's.com. You can always call us 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. ecmalone.com is their website, 8337-MALONE. All right, let's see here. Let me go over here and look at this on the Bet Builder, courtesy of Ameristar. Just want to check. And the line in the Super Bowl has moved to 2 points. It was a point yesterday. It's moved to 2. You got 2 weeks of this, so we'll see where this line ends up. But Kansas City +2, San Francisco -2 in this matchup. That totals 47.5. All right, Stuart Mandel has put out on X, says now we have some details on the Tennessee stuff via the New York Times. Quote, the investigation is focused in part on the use of a private jet by a so-called donor collective to fly a high-profile recruit to campus. There's nothing in the bylaws that said you can't put a guy on a jet from the collective. It's nothing. Absolutely nothing. Courtesy of the AP and the New York Times, Chancellor Donde Plowman told the NCAA president that allegations Tennessee violated rules overseeing name, image, and likeness are factually untrue and procedurally flawed, according to a letter released today. Plowman wrote Monday in a letter to Charlie Baker shortly after Tennessee officials met with the NCAA to discuss the allegations that it was, quote, intellectually dishonest. Considering the leaders of the collegiate sports it owes it to the students and their families to act in the best interest with clear rules. Quote, instead, 2.5 years of vague and contradictory NCAA memos, emails, and guidance about name, image, and likeness has created extraordinary chaos that student athletes and institutions are struggling to navigate, Plowman wrote in a letter. In short, the NCAA has failed, and they are failing. Plowman wrote that she appreciated NCAA staff listening to Tennessee's arguments and agreeing to elevate them, but she also noted that they're intellectually dishonest for NCAA enforcement staff to pursue infractions and cases as if students have no NIL rights or institutions, quote, willfully violating a clear and unchanging set of rules. The NCAA policy is to refrain from commenting publicly about current, pending, or potential investigations with rare exceptions. The NIL collective that supports Tennessee athletics, Spirey Sports Group, was among the first and most well-organized to emerge around the country after the NCAA lifted its ban on athletes making money off their fame. Plowman made it clear she wanted to talk to Baker in person. I would too, especially since the NCAA president recently testified before Congress about wanting to meet with as many members and athletes as possible about the issues surrounding college sports. She wrote the letter after her December request for Baker to meet with her, and Tennessee Athletics Director Danny White was denied. Now think about that. Charlie Baker says, yeah, he gets up there in front of Congress and all his political buddies. Remember, this guy was a former politician for his entire life. We want to meet with as many people as possible. We want to meet with athletic directors. We want to meet with players. We want to hear your stories. Okay, Charlie, when can we set up a meeting? You're not. You're denied. Can somebody get in the ring with this guy? Can we get him in the ring? That's the question. She said Tennessee worked well with the NCAA in recent investigations, cooperation cited by the Division I Committee on Infractions. It goes through Tennessee's stuff under old Pruitt there. Only Tennessee's early cooperation with the NCAA kept the program from a postseason ban. 4 former staffers were given show cause and orders. Quote, it is inconceivable that our institution's leadership would be cited as an example of exemplary leadership in 2023 in July, then as a cautionary example of a lack of institutional control only 6 months later. Plowman wrote in a letter obtained by the Associated Press. Can you believe that? Tennessee was given an exemplary leadership award in 2023, July of last year, by the NCAA. Now they're saying that it's a lack of institutional control. The NCAA found most of the violations were related to a paid unofficial visit scheme used consistently by the football program over the 2 years and involving at least a dozen members of the football staff. Tennessee just wrapped up its third season, but I'm getting to the end of this thing. So that's it. Tennessee is mad as hell. I mean, the NCAA is mad as hell. They put Nico Iamalava on a jet through the collective and flew him there. More bully. The NCAA doesn't comment because they are cowards and don't want to get grilled by anyone. There is that for sure. All right, let me look and see what else we got over here. Kelley Ford will join us at 4:30. We'll go 4:30 to 5. Mike Grace at 5:15. 5, let's see here. Is this right? Let me make sure I'll tell you this. All right, so we start looking at the Super Bowl and predictions that could be made, not just in the game, but things that could happen in the game. Is it fair to say for the 49ers to win, Nick Bosa needs a big game? Can he get after Patrick Mahomes? And I think that he probably has to. Can he get a sack? Can he stay in the backfield? Also, you could see a game that I think will go 4 quarters in the Super Bowl. Could come down to a pivotal fourth quarter drive. And, when you kind of look at other parts of this game, what does it do for Patrick Mahomes and his legacy if they win? And then even if he wins the Super Bowl MVP? Whopping 12 out of the last 17 Super Bowl MVPs have been the quarterbacks of the winning teams. In fact, when Kansas City defeated San Francisco in 2020, many thought that Damian Williams should have won the MVP, not Mahomes. Mahomes turned the ball over twice, while Williams averaged 6.1 yards per carry on 17 rushes and scored once on the ground and once through the air. But, MVP is a quarterback award, much like some of these other awards that you see in college and other places, whether it's to be in the regular season of the Super Bowl. Many are predicting Mahomes will be the first player to win 3 Super Bowl MVPs in a 5-year span. Another Super Bowl MVP would make him the third player in NFL history to win the 3 Super Bowl MVPs along with Joe Montana and Tom Brady. Montana won 3, Brady won 5. And then it says Travis Kelce retirement speculation heats up. Do you think he's retiring after this? You don't think so? I think he's probably going to retire, personally, because this is it. Taylor Swift, paratroopers comes in. They have this big moment in this big night. Chiefs win the Super Bowl. For you, I hope they don't. Get the season behind. They break up. Taylor Swift makes an album. Travis Kelce retires, and that whole thing goes away. We're brought to you by Burgers Blues Barbecue, now in Flowood. They've got a great deal going on breakfast this week, 50% off 6:30 to 9:30 in the morning. 50% off all breakfast, only in Flowood. Get out to Flowood, have breakfast. Also, you can find them in Madison and in Brandon. Make sure to find them on their website. Also, social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram. Hour 2 coming up next.
The number you have reached.
WRKS Pickens Jackson. From college football to the NFL to high school football. 365 days a year. Hear it all on Jackson Sports Authority. Live and local at 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com. Now let's get back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Hour 2 starts right now, courtesy of Mississippi Legends Grill. It's going to be trivia tonight. Get out and enjoy. Not Your Grandmother's Bingo tomorrow night. And, of course, kids eat free on Thursdays. They'll have you teed up for the big game, the Super Bowl next weekend. Get out and enjoy sports throughout the week and the weekend at Mississippi Legends Grill, corner of Castlewoods Drive and Lakeland Drive. And make sure to get them on Facebook.com/Mississippi Legends Grill to get the lunch special of the day. David Murray joined us in the first hour. We'll get that teed up for you if you missed that later on this week. Kelley Ford, 4:30 to 5, coming up here in about 30 minutes. And then, of course, Mike Grace will join us at 5:15 as we'll talk some SEC sports with Mike Grace, courtesy of the Press Box. And, of course, you can hear Press Box at night here, 8 till 10. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. We're inside the Ameristar Casino Studios on a Tuesday. All right, yesterday we were telling you some of the numbers in the Super Bowl. Hour number 1 talking a lot about this Tennessee investigation, how a lot of that is very flawed. There's just not a lot. And look, Tennessee, I've never seen an NCAA investigation. I don't think any of us have, where the party comes out and goes, yep, we're guilty. But this is totally different, and that there's not a lot of parameters around name, image, and likeness. So a lot on that. All right. Yesterday, we're telling you some of the numbers coming into this week from this past weekend and headed into the Super Bowl. And by the way, it is Senior Bowl week. A lot of guys down at the Senior Bowl getting ready to put on a show or not. Patrick Mahomes, though, is magic. We know that. The Chiefs quarterback will become the first player to start in 4 Super Bowls before the age of 30. He also won his 14th postseason game, which is tied for third most in the NFL history, trailing only Tom Brady at 35 and Joe Montana at 16 ball games. Lamar Jackson loses again in the playoffs with a loss to the Chiefs. The Ravens quarterback now has a career record of 2-4 in the postseason, which is tied for the 4th worst record of all time for any quarterback who has started at least 5 games in the playoffs. Ravens can't get over the hump. The Ravens have won 66 games over the past 6 seasons, which is tied for the 2nd most in NFL history for a team that didn't make the Super Bowl during that 6-year span. Only the Chargers, who won 67 between 2004 and 2009, won more without making it to the Super Bowl. Also, the Chiefs can go back-to-back. The Chiefs have a chance to become the NFL's first repeat Super Bowl champion since 2003 and 2004, when the Patriots went back-to-back. And Reed versus Shanahan Part 2, this will make just the 4th time in NFL history that 2 coaches have met in a Super Bowl at least 2 times. We haven't seen this happen since Tom Coughlin's Giants played Bill Belichick's Patriots 2 times in 5 seasons. And never get bet against Patrick Mahomes. The Chiefs quarterback is now 3-0 as a playoff underdog in his career, which is impressive when you consider that he now has as many underdog wins in the postseason as Brett Favre, Dan Marino, Steve Young, and Jim Kelley combined. Those 4 Hall of Famers went 3-25 as underdogs in the playoffs. Now, what do you think about that? Beaver, do you think Patrick Mahomes is a better quarterback than Brett Favre, Dan Marino, Steve Young, and Jim Kelley? Favre, Marino, Young, Kelley. Something to ponder. He's 3-0 as a playoff underdog. Those 4 quarterbacks were 3-25 as underdogs. That's wild. Very wild. And as things stand right now, Mahomes could be an underdog once again in the Super Bowl. It's what it looks like, at least right now, as that line sits at -2 for the 49ers, courtesy of Penn Gaming and Ameristar Casino. All right, let's see here. Let me move forward here. Deion Sanders says he turned down coaching jobs to stay at Colorado. Quote, I don't inherit a legacy, I build it. Deion Sanders is staying put, of course, in Colorado this year for the time being and has some big expectations for next season. On Tuesday, Sanders appeared on Fox Sports' Undisputed Show to discuss the Buffs' upcoming season. According to Sanders, he turned down coaching jobs this offseason to stay in Colorado. A couple of times, but I'm happy where I am. I got a kickstand down. I'm straight. I love this fan base. I'm looking out the window at these snow-capped mountains, and I am loving it. I don't inherit a legacy. I build it. I inherited some bull junk, and I'm going to fix it. Sanders believes his upgraded Colorado team can make the college football play. Now, Deion just said today he feels like his team can make the playoffs. Quote, I believe, I just don't want to wear this on my shirt and on my chest. I truly believe that what we have in this house last year, we were 7 points away from a multitude of wins, and we feel really good about where we're at. Do you think Colorado can make the college football playoff? Your coach, Deion Sanders.
No, and neither does Deion Sanders. This is just more talk. We were 7 points away from a multitude of wins. Close losses, you know what they are? They're still losses. If you were good, if you had the pieces, you would have won. Oh, we were 7 points away, but you didn't get them. You didn't win. You're not going to win them all this year either.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. And again, they open the season with North Dakota State. They have back-to-back road games against Nebraska and Colorado State. They'll play Baylor at home, Central Florida on the road. They get a bye week, Kansas State at Arizona, Cincinnati, at Texas Tech, Utah, Kansas on the road, and then Oklahoma State. And I'm telling you, this Big 12 football year, I think it's going to be a fun brand to watch. I mean, Arizona's in a rebuild now after Jed Fish went off to Washington. Arizona State's in a rebuild. Baylor, BYU, Central Florida, Cincinnati, Colorado. I mean, there's not a dime's worth of difference in a lot of those teams. Utah, Iowa State, Kansas State, Oklahoma State, TCU, Texas Tech, Houston, and West Virginia. This could be one of the better brands that we actually see as far as, fun and entertaining. It very well could be. All right, let's see here. Pug. That man is hammered. He very well could be. Dexter. If you're drafting in April, do you draft a 22-year-old John Elway or a 22-year-old Patrick Mahomes? What say you, Jake? Well, do I know now what I didn't know then, if that makes sense? Oh, man. I think I could flip a coin, so I do know now that I'm taking Mahomes. Who would you take, Beef? If you knew everything right now that you know about both of those players and they hit Space Ghost Time Machine and you could either draft Mahomes or John Elway, who do you pick?
Mahomes.
I think so. I think it's Mahomes for sure. KO. KO. I inherited some bull junk. That dude is a damn worm. Not getting a lot of love on Deion Sanders. Yeah, it's going to be tough for Colorado to make the college football play. I mean, they'd have to win the conference, and they would have to do it. Well, if they win the conference, they're going to get in anyway. And here, that's the thing, too. Remember, you could see a 9-3 or 8-4 team win the Big 12, and they're going to get in the playoff. They are going to get in the playoff. So an 8-4 team that wins the Big 12 may or will trump a 9-3 or maybe even a 10-2 SEC team. Dexter, but Elway is playing today's rules too. Well, yeah. Now, again, there's a lot to be said about what some of these older quarterbacks that are now in the twilight of their life, Hall of Fame quarterbacks, what would they do in this set of rules? And then you could flip that and say, what would some of these quarterbacks do? Like if Patrick Mahomes, if you were able to hit him like some of these, John Elway, Dan Marino, Warren Moon, Randall Cunningham, everybody from that era, those quarterbacks were fair game. Absolutely fair game. If you remember the hit on Joe Montana, and I believe it was from Lawrence Taylor, that really put him down. I mean, that hit today would probably levy a suspension on a player. So what would those players play like in yesteryear? Speaking of quarterbacks, Caleb Williams ripped to shreds by former New York Jets scout who unleashed fury on the USC quarterback. Former New York Jets scout Daniel Kelley is not a fan of Caleb Williams. He ripped the Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback to shreds during an unhinged rant about his NFL draft stock. As this writer says, admittedly, I do not know if Kelley is a credible source who deserves any sort of attention. However, he did at one point work for the Jets organization as a pro scout and has his former credentials to prove it. It's the same man that declared Spencer Rattler as the best quarterback in this draft class. So take what Kelley has to say with a grain of salt, especially considering his history with quarterbacks. But anyway, Daniel Kelley unleashes a fury on Caleb Williams and says this time of the year is about teams doing background work and trying to get inside prospects' heads. This is a part of the evaluation process. I believe any team considering Caleb Williams needs to think about the high risk from the neck up based on Williams' actions, conduct, and words that he's demonstrated. From painting his fingernails with obscenities aimed at opponents to refusing to shake hands with Utah and refusing to speak to reporters after the UCLA game, Williams has given NFL owners, the decision makers a lot to think about. Sportsmanship? ? He also has a public statement after the Notre Dame game about a fan being like a sheep and referred to himself as a lion. Will be painting some obscenities. Will he paint obscenities about the 49ers on his fingernails? Will he jump into the stands and try to fight somebody? There's a lot of questions about Caleb Williams' character. What will the what will he say at NFL press conferences? How will he represent his team and city? What's he going to do and say next? Those are questions that a lot of people are asking. He's much closer to Johnny Manziel than Patrick Mahomes on the spectrum. I mean, with that respect and sensitivity, but that's what I would say if I was scouting and calling meetings in these pre-draft meetings. So this thing goes on. I mean, absolutely just torches Caleb Williams. And I am sure that more and more story. I mean, this is going to be a big story for Caleb Williams. How does he do in the interview process? We know he can play football. How does he treat owners? How does he treat his coaches? What does he want in return? I mean, is he going to ask for all of this crazy stuff he's already asked for? Half ownership in a team. Not going to go here. Not going to go there. Interesting questions nonetheless. We're brought to you by Ashley Howie, Cry Like Realtor, 769-226-3782. Facebook.com/Ashley Howie Realtor if you're looking to buy, sell, or relocate back.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by our friends at Ameristar Casino. Get out and play as there's so much to do at Ameristar, from the NBA to college basketball. College basketball really starting to hit the gas as we turn through the second half here. After this week, we'll hit the second half of the conference slate. You can play that at Ameristar. 4 great restaurants to serve you at Ameristar. Also, the Bottleneck Blues Bar. We're also brought to you by A1 Gear and Auto, your hometown vehicle specialist. Anything under the hood, front end to back, 601-939-1060. That's 601-939-1060. Before I move on, what's going on with all these naked people running around Brandon? That's over there close to your house, isn't it? So have you seen any of this going on over there since you live in that side of Brandon?
So I saw the other day, it was on Highway 18, was it close to Chick-fil-A? And you mentioned during the last break that something, I think Ricky Jesse was telling you about someone today. Where was that going on?
Over there in Crossgates. Some woman, he said, that they picked up the other day, was walking buck naked across the road. They got her again.
Oh, it was the same lady?
That's what he said. I cannot attest to that. I'm going off what Jesse said.
Crossgates. That's right around the corner.
Yeah.
From me.
What's going on?
I don't know.
They opened up that new road that comes into there, and everybody went crazy over that way.
Well, there's what it is. She's coming from Flowood then. The access got too easy.
That's what it is. Yeah, because it's a clear shot now. I mean, absolutely clear shot. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you go home now, you go that way, right? You go straight on down in there, and then you take a left and you're home.
Yeah.
Right when you get to Brandon.
Yeah, I don't mess with that intersection that they opened on El Dorado because no one could figure out what to do. It opened and it was only the traffic on El Dorado had a stop sign. So there was no stop sign crossing over the intersection. And then first weekend it opened, there were a couple of wrecks. So then the geniuses, I guess at MDOT, decided we'll put up some temporary stop signs. But then they took the temporary stop signs down. But now they've been back up for the past month or so. So anyway, I don't tangle with that. And the naked people don't tangle with that either. They just walk on through. Obviously,
They don't. Looks like you're going to need to be careful over there. Don't let us catch you ripping your shirt off walking around out there either. Over here on the Cowboy Maloney's text line, get off my balls. It would break the new quarterbacks. Oh, talking about quarterbacks going back. Do you think today's quarterbacks would have a problem playing in the 1980s?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. They're conditioned now they know that basically they can't be touched. 80s, obviously, we know all bets are off. Do what you want.
No, I think you're probably right. Dexter, Dion showed me in the Stanford game what's to come. 6-6 at best, just not a good in-game adjustment coach. I think you're definitely right on that. He's got a lot to do. Matt Daddy stanking Rankin. Now, look, don't go throwing shade at Rankin because of that. Is that an indictment on the whole county?
No.
I can't help that North Brandon sent their naked women down to South Brandon. Because you're right, they did come from Flowood. Real C. Collins. Let's not ignore other crazy happenings in B-Town. Yeah, that was not good. It's been a bad week in Brandon. The arrest of a murder in Brandon. Yeah, it's just been a bad week. It has been a bad week. Do you think people that represent other cities are pulling against Brandon now because of this?
Probably. It's pretty easy to pull against Brandon.
It is for you. Well, I guess it is for most people, right? Why do y'all hate Brandon so much? You're from Pearl, so I understand that. What's all the hate from? It's a nice place. It's a good area. Great place to raise your kids. Great community.
I apparently used to be.
Not anymore.
As of, maybe 2.5 weeks ago.
Yeah, they need to clean all that up. Dan Lanning, the head football coach at Oregon, takes a shot at the ACC and Big 12. The University of Oregon will be an official member of the Big Ten Conference on August 2nd, 2024, and Dan Lanning is ready for what lies ahead. He made some bold claims about the future of his program during a recent appearance on the Ryan Russillo podcast. First and foremost, the third-year head coach looks at some of the challenges that come with such a significant transition with excitement. Lanning looks forward to facing all the unique differences between the Pac-12 and Big Ten head on, especially when it comes to the style of play. Quote, I think the challenge in front of us is going to be a lot of fun, and I don't think anybody gets in this profession and says, give me the easiest road. Being in a conference that has a competitive nature, that has really good football, that plays a physical brand of football, that's something I'm excited about. Lanning understands that the logistics of away games are going to be different. However, he and the athletic department in Eugene are preparing for the changes. Plus, not everyone or every away game will require a 6-hour flight, and the Ducks are used to traveling longer distances at this point. Lanning actually believes that the current Big Ten college football teams will have to adjust to Oregon more than Oregon will have to adjust to the Big Ten. Quote, I think at the end of the day, the Big Ten's going to have to prepare for us and what we do different for that league. And then he took shots at the Big 12 and the ACC. I'm glad to be in one of the two conferences in college football that are elite. I'm going to be able to go and play some of the elite teams. You look at the national championship, and that was two Big Ten teams that were squaring off. Yeah, I told you somebody was going to take claim to that. He didn't say a Pac-12 and Big Ten team. He said two Big Ten teams. And then, of course, indirectly took a shot at the other conferences. Let's see here. Yeah, Matt Daddy just sends us a GIF of what looks to be an Alabama fan. I think that's what that is. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Millennials text line. Dan. Oh, man. That's a shot, Dan. That is a shot. All right, let's see here. DJ Durkin will be the next defensive coordinator at Auburn. DJ Durkin is officially going to be announced as the defensive coordinator at Auburn. ESPN's Chris Lowe first reported the move. Auburn Live can confirm the hire. Durkin was Texas A&M's defensive coordinator in 2022 and 23. Before that, he was recently co-DC at Ole Miss in 2020 and 2021, and Maryland, their head football coach, 2016 to 18. Sources tell Auburn Live that Hugh Freeze also seriously considered former Mississippi State head coach and defensive coordinator Zach Arnett, as well as Houston Texans linebackers coach Chris Kiffin for the position. So Durkin is headed to the Plains. We're brought to you by our friends at Sound and Communications, online at soundcomav.com. Collaborate, design, and build with Sound and Communications. They've been around since 1955. Head over to their website to learn more today. soundcomav.com. Kelly Ford coming.
Turning to sports.
With Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive.
One of the last pure pleasures I have left in my life.
Yeah, maybe you ought to get a life first, okay? On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
brought to you by Cowboy Maloney, 70 years in the business, Mississippi owned and operated, largest appliance inventory in the state. Online at cowboymaloney's.com, Kelley Ford, thelines.com, also on X at KFord Ratings, kfordratings.com, on your radio, Tuesdays, 4:30 to 5 o'clock. Kelley, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, Jake. How are you today?
We are good. We're just chalking through everything as, we move through Tuesday. I noticed you're putting out a lot of stuff on college basketball. I do want to touch on that before we get out of here. First, let's go with the NFL. Your thoughts on what you saw this past weekend, and, were you surprised by any of the outcomes?
I would say, Jake, one, it was a good weekend of NFL football. Good games, compelling, exciting, lots of good play, some big-time mistakes, too, both by players and coaching staffs, as I'm sure we can talk about. But I was surprised that Kansas City won. And people can say, well, you shouldn't have been surprised, Kelley. They got Pat Mahomes. He's one of the best quarterbacks to ever do it, maybe the best to ever do it. I'm not in that camp yet. I think that Tom Brady's resume still speaks for itself. And, again, I'm a Colts fan, so I did not like the New England Patriots during the Peyton Manning era and Tom Brady in that rivalry. But what Tom Brady accomplished, I think, is stands above everything. But Patrick Mahomes is certainly on a path to being in that conversation. And so you bet against him, you pick against him at your own peril. I really thought Baltimore was a better team. I still think, actually, Baltimore is a better team than Kansas City. On that day, Kansas City was the better team, and that's what matters. That defense, though, Kansas City, they're doing it different than they have this last 5-6 years. The defense now is among the best in the entire NFL. The offense with Patrick Mahomes is going to be what it is. So that result was surprising to me a little bit. I know it was a close projected game, and we got that. But I did think that Baltimore would win that game. And on the NFC side, I did think San Francisco would win. I didn't think that the game would play out the way that it did. I was surprised that Detroit jumped all over San Francisco in the first half and even held a pretty commanding lead at halftime. I did not see the game playing out that way, but I did think San Francisco would win, and ultimately they did come back and get it done. So I think, of the four teams that were left, Detroit, by the numbers and things that I'm looking at, they were the weakest team. And so I wouldn't have been surprised at all if San Francisco, Kansas City, Baltimore, some combination of that made the Super Bowl. And that's what we have here. So I think it's going to be a great game. It's exciting. But, yeah, it was a fun weekend, the conference championship game weekend in the NFL.
Kelley Ford on your radio, Tuesday edition of the program, thelines.com, also KFord Ratings on X and kfordratings.com. Which one of these teams that are eliminated, the Lions or the Ravens, and a lot's got to happen with coaches and obviously the NFL draft, free agency and stuff, do you think has the longer staying power for next year and maybe the year after of those two?
I think it's Baltimore between those two. And the answer for me is as simple as Lamar Jackson. And I know people are disappointed, and I'm sure he is, with, how the season ended here for them. But there's a handful of quarterbacks in the NFL that are just different. They are the difference makers. They find ways to win games. They carry teams on their back. And Lamar Jackson, it's not all him. That Baltimore defense is really, really good. And they've got some great continuity within that organization from the ownership all the way down. So it's not just Lamar Jackson, but between the two, Detroit, they are a team that's on the rise. If I'm not mistaken, I think they've got some things they need to work out with some potential free agents and maybe backfilling some needs that might come up here this offseason. But between the two, to me, the answer is the Ravens because of Lamar Jackson. I think that the future is bright with him, and they will at some point get over this hump. I feel confident. He's that good of a player. He's that transcendent of a player that I'll be surprised if he ends his career having never made and maybe even won a Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this, NFL-wise. When you look at teams like Buffalo and, just 10,000-foot flyover of what has happened in the league, Buffalo, Miami, you look at Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, you look at the strides that Houston made. You can go across the Jim Harbaugh now comes into the AFC in San Diego, for the Chargers, rather. I always refer to them as San Diego, probably always will, for the Chargers.
Yep.
You go to the NFC. I mean, the Packers made strides, looked really good in the postseason. The Cowboys are kind of what they are. We'll see. Philadelphia's going through a transition. Is it safe to say that the AFC looks like it is positioning itself, and we go back and forth with this, to be the stronger of the two leagues?
Yeah, and Jake, I think that was the narrative coming into the 2023 season as well, and I don't think it's changed. The AFC And it starts at the quarterback position. I mean, because of the quarterbacks, and you mentioned a lot of them there, because of the quarterbacks that are playing on AFC rosters, by and large, on average, that's going to be the stronger of the two conferences. So, as a fan of the Indianapolis Colts, what do we have in Anthony Richardson? Because for us to be competitive and for us to make runs in the playoffs, we've got to get great play at the quarterback position. I imagine a lot of your listeners are New Orleans Saints fans, and so I'd rather be a Saints fan from a perspective of your conference difficulty than a Colts fan, because I do think the NFC is more gettable right now, if you will. I know the Saints have all sorts of cap things they're working on, and folks aren't happy with, by and large, the product that's been on the field or the win-loss record. But as my what-if standings show, New Orleans was not that far away from being, an above 500 team, maybe even a playoff team this year if some bounces go their way and they get some breaks in different games. So the AFC, to answer your question, I believe is shaping up to be the more difficult of the two conferences, and it ebbs and flows. It's just where we are right now with the quarterbacks that are in the league.
Let's step off into some college basketball. We'll talk about this last question in this segment, then get into some more of it. And I may come back to college football before the end. You've got your K-Ford ratings for basketball out, and you look at the odds, courtesy of Penn Gaming and others, to win the national championship in basketball. And it's a cluttered field. You've got Houston as the number one team in the K-Ford ratings for basketball. Purdue, Arizona, Tennessee, and Auburn, followed by Alabama, UConn, North Carolina, Iowa State, and BYU. How deep of a field could we be looking at this year?
I think it's as open this year, Jake, as it's been in recent years. And the NCAA tournament with college basketball, it's such a unique setup because it really is all about matchups and the chaos of just the one-off game. That's why everyone loves March Madness. That's why we call it March Madness. It's hard to really pinpoint and identify, how it's going to play out. I do think the teams that you just mentioned certainly are going to be at the forefront of those odds, have the best chance to make a run potentially in March. But there's tons of teams outside of that you didn't mention who, if you discount them, you do it at your own risk. And, Duke is a team that's got the upper end to go out and win 6 games in March. Kansas outside the top 10 right now of my power ratings. You could go on and on about teams that have a chance. There is some proven recent history here about where you need to be and kind of adjusted offensive and defensive efficiency by KenPom. So you can kind of whittle it down through that. But at any given year, teams can come out of – we just saw last year with UConn. I believe they were a 4 seed. You don't have to be a top 1, 2, 3 seed to make a deep run in the tournament. It's all about peaking at the right time and getting favorable matchups in March. But, yes, from a power rating standpoint, those teams you mentioned, they're certainly the ones that you can expect to be playing late into March and then into early April.
Kelley Ford on your radio. We've got to take a timeout. We'll get him back for another segment and head to the top of the hour. We're brought to you by Gutter Masters. Go to GutterMastersLLC.com. Get protected today, 601-503-7755. Custom gutter solutions with Gutter Masters.
5 Eloquist.
It's time to get
back in the game
with Jake Wimberly and the Afternoon Drive.
That's entertainment.
On the station that specializes in the Mississippi sports you love.
Now we're talking.
Live and local on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by Maristar Casino. Get out and play college basketball, the NBA, NFL, and more at AmaristarCasino.com/Vicksburg, where you can get the bet builder, get in and play. Kelley Ford with TheLines.com. Kelley, I know you guys you do a lot with football, but I see some basketball, do a little bit of everything at the Lines.
Yeah, over at TheLines.com, got you everything covered from your sports wagering perspective, whatever sport you're interested in, all sorts of content and information over there. You can check it out at TheLines.com.
Kelley, when you look at the conference averages, I like what you've done here. Conference average, K-Ford rating, points per game, above or below Division I average. Big 12, comes in at 12.2. The Big 10 right behind them at 10.4, moving up the SEC 10.3. Big East and then the ACC. And, of course, we know this when you get into college basketball, you get into, as much as what you've got 33 different conferences here. It really is interesting that I think we forget how many people play Division I basketball that could get into the tournament. But let me ask you about the SEC. How deep is this league? We have those conversations down here of, is this a 7-team league to the tournament? Is it an 8-team league, 9-league team? How deep is this league in your estimation?
Yeah, the SEC is obviously the kings of the gridiron, but very good in men's basketball as well. I think you can go 7, 8, 9 deep into the tournament this year. Of course, the bubble starts getting murky. You get your bid stealers. But in terms of the best teams in the SEC, I mean, for me, it kind of starts with a top tier of grouping. Tennessee, Auburn, Alabama, all very similarly power rated, up there in the top 5, the top 10 in the country. So to me, that's kind of the class of the SEC, if you will. Kentucky is probably in that next kind of tier, that next grouping of teams. Texas A&M, Florida, Mississippi State, right there in your backyard, Jake. Those are also some teams that, from a power rating standpoint, are performing at a very, very high level, a top 40 level nationally. You talk about next year, what the SEC is going to look like, both Texas and Oklahoma right now in the top 35 of my power ratings on the basketball side. So I think you can get all the way down into the middle, maybe even that third quartile of the conference, where you've got resumes that put you in a position to be under consideration on Selection Sunday, because that's what the committee's looking at. And as someone who works in a conference office and oversees basketball in the Horizon League, I can speak pretty detailed on what the committee's valuing and what they don't value. When you play in a conference like the SEC or like the Big 12, where night in and night out, these games that you're playing, they're quad 1, they're quad 2 opportunities, you get rewarded by the committee for winning those games. You do not get punished for losing those games. So even if a team has collected some losses and that loss column's really piling up, if all of those losses are in quad 1 and quad 2, in the eyes of the selection committee, you actually still have a pretty good resume, and that's how you can see, 8, 9 teams from a single conference get into the tournament.
Which conference, in your estimation, are we sleeping on this year that could be, somewhat of a surprise? I mean, obviously we know about the Big 12, the 10, the SEC, the Big East, the ACC. I mean, are we looking at the, Mountain Valley Conference? Are we looking at the West Coast Conference? Are we looking at maybe a WAC? I mean, where are you looking that maybe a lot of people aren't looking?
Yeah, I think, outside the Power 6, if you will, in college basketball, that'd be your traditional Power 5 plus the Big East. For me, it's easy to go right to the Mountain West. I think the Mountain West, they might get 4 teams in the tournament this year. And, for a high they're mid-major, high major, whatever you want to call them. They do play FBS football, of course, in the Mountain West, but typically not a basketball powerhouse that comes to mind, the Mountain West Conference. I also think the A-10 is a conference to keep an eye on with some good teams. The WCC, the West Coast Conference, usually they've got Gonzaga, and then, St. Mary's will be a strong team too. In recent years, San Francisco has made the tournament out of the WCC. Gonzaga is down this year. This is not the Gonzaga-type team that you're used to seeing from the last 25 years. So I'm not sure how much the WCC is going to be a big player come March this year, but definitely the Mountain West, the A-10, that's where you need to be looking if you're looking outside the traditional Power 6.
Let me shift back to college football real quickly and get your thoughts on a couple. Well, I talked to Chris Landry about this yesterday. Way too early, but you look at the Miami Hurricanes and what they have been able to do in the transfer portal. You start really chalking through their recruiting and what they obviously bringing in Cam Ward, and it looks like this could be a bang or bust year for Mario Cristobal. And talent wise, it looks like they've got as good a talent as anybody in the ACC coming back. Is this a bang or bust year in your estimation for Mario Cristobal?
Yeah, I hate to put that kind of label on it when we're this far out, as you said, but I think that's reasonable. And, Jake, as we've talked about before, in the new look ACC, I mean, Florida State, a recent, the last half century has risen to power, had some really, really good teams in the 80s and 90s. Of course, won a national championship in 2013 with Jameis Winston, got maybe snubbed this year. Florida State's a team that you look at in the ACC and say they could be a flag bearer. Clemson, with what they've accomplished under Dabo Swinney the last 10, 15 years, they could be a flag bearer. Outside of those two programs in the ACC, now we're talking football, not basketball. I mean, where else are you going if you're not going Miami as kind of that team that really should be at the top of the conference standings every single year? Mario Cristobal is a Miami guy. He's an alum, right? He knows how to recruit. We saw that at Oregon. We're seeing that at Miami. The biggest thing for me is, can Mario Cristobal improve really his game management skills, his time management, the way that he calls a game, the way that he affects the game from the sideline. If he can piece that together, you said it. They're putting the pieces together in the transfer portal. They've got a really strong roster. There really is not an excuse for Miami, and I'll say this regardless of who the coach is, there's not an excuse now for Miami to not be in the top 2 or 3 on a year-in and year-out basis in the ACC. And that should have been the expectation there since they joined the conference in 2005, I believe it was. Of course, they have not been a perennial power in that conference. There's really no excuse. And as the landscape continues to shift in college football with conference realignment, Miami needs to make sure that they're playing at a peak level here when the next wave inevitably hits.
Kelley Ford, make sure to find him on X. You can go to KFord Ratings, also KFordRatings.com. Check him out at the Lions. Kelley, always appreciate your time. Have a great week. Look, when we talk next week, it'll be a lot about the Super Bowl, and we'll tee that up as well as other things as well.
Looking forward to it, Jake. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks so much. Kelley Ford on your radio. We are brought to you by our friends at Mack Hike and Madison Gluckstadt. Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Chevy dealer. Madison Gluckstadt. Get that great Mack Hike feeling today. Online or on site, go to MackHikeMadison.com. That's MackHikeMadison.com, or on site as well. New and used inventory. Hour 3 coming up in just a bit. Mike Grace in 20 minutes.
WRKS Pickens Jackson, where it's
Time
to take a ride. Yes, we're back with Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive. It's live, it's local, and it's on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Hour 3 brought to you by Capital Grill in Jackson. 5050 I-55 North, Suite F. Capital Grill, your afternoon and happy hour destination. Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, courtesy of Southern Beverage. Please drink responsibly. All kinds of other options as well. Make sure to get an appetizer or a meal at Capital Grill of Jackson. Find them on Facebook.com/Capital Grill of Jackson and CapitalGrillofJackson.com. We appreciate Kelley Ford, 4:30 to 5. We'll tee that up later for you as well. I just noticed you're drinking regular water. What happened to the big cans of water? You still do that?
Oh, that's only a once a week purchase. That's luxury water, because those waters are pricey. That Liquid Death.
Oh, okay. So you had so you get them once a week.
Yeah.
So it's like 1 can a week.
1 case a week.
Case like 12?
There's only 8 in a case, so I guess it's not really even a case. We'll say a pack.
A pack
of the death.
Texas 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. We are inside the Ameristar Casino Studios. Let's see here. Buffalo Chris. Where? Oh, there it is. The new road is East Metro. Is that what they call that? East Metro Parkway?
Yeah. Thanks for breaking news on me.
Oh, okay.
Chris.
He's making sure that you knew where you're going.
I mean, it opened in 2013. I've only been driving it since then.
Chief Shooting Bull. It wasn't the fact that she was naked. It was the problem of her not wearing clothes. Metro Mayhem. Is that what we're going to call this? Metro Parkway Mayhem?
Might as well.
Turd Ferguson. I just got in the truck. What happened in Brandon? I get my news here. Beaver, would you like to fill Turd in for his news of the day?
I thought what was happening originally was there's naked women running around Brandon, but apparently it's the same lady. So first it was Highway 18 over by Chick-fil-A, and wasn't that just last weekend or last week?
Yeah.
And apparently she's at it again today. So that's all we know about that.
Matt Daddy says that picture he sent us was a picture of the good citizens of Rankin County. Let's see here. I almost hit a deer on the parkway the other day, that East Metro Parkway. Maybe we need to watch and see what kind of events unfold on that parkway. You better be careful with the deer this time of year.
I'm glad we've gotten on this East Metro Parkway. Need to figure out what's going on, because just Sunday, 2 days ago, I was driving down East Metro, and over where they opened it all up, there were no homes. I mean, there's homes way back in the distance, but mainly it's a lot of open land, and they're burning a bunch of stuff out there. And I see this man walking his dog, and then I see a couple ladies. They're walking down East Metro, but it was in that area where there's nothing around there. Where did these people come from? I mean, that had to be a long walk for you. It's like they just appeared out of nowhere. Where'd you come from?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong here, there are offshoots, right? Roads off of there.
Yeah.
Maybe they just spun up on those roads and walked in, and they're using it as a walking trail of sorts.
Well, that one offshoot road, that just goes over to Old Brandon. No homes there. And then, there's one house in the distance beyond where they're burning, but it's way, like, he would have had to trek through he would have had to walk through the fire.
It's very interesting.
They're just materializing.
But you said these are older women?
No, a couple of them looked like middle-aged ladies, but then there was a whole nother guy down even further into nowhere, walking his dog.
Well, people, they will walk a long distance. Could have walked in from Pearl over there.
I don't bring these stories to you to rationalize. I want you to agree with me that something about East Metro is fishy and people are materializing out of thin air.
That is true.
Okay, thank you.
We just need to keep our eyes on it, East Metro Parkway. Any odd stories that you see on East Metro, put them here. St. Louis Vic. Okay, Jake, March 21st. Jake Gyllenhaal, Conor McGregor, Roadhouse movie. The trailer looks pretty good. Are you in on this new Roadhouse movie?
I am. It does look good. Have you seen the trailer he speaks of?
I think I saw a snippet of it. I need to go make sure I go watch it again.
Gyllenhaal is a ripped beast in this thing.
Is he the modern Swayze in this movie?
I refuse to call it that because I don't think he can. Well, maybe it's just the place in my heart, though, for Crazy Swayze.
No, that makes sense.
But it does look good. I'm intrigued by it.
So does McGregor have a big role in this movie, or is he just like kind of appearing and then getting out?
So ever since they announced that, there really hasn't been a ton of details, but it does look like he's got a bigger role than we ever knew because he got second billing in the trailer. He's right behind Gyllenhaal, so I would imagine that means because it said they're gonna tie up more than once throughout the movie. So I think he's going to be a pretty big character.
Okay. JM. Jake, no quarterback that has running as his number one skill set has ever won a Super Bowl. Lamar is a novelty item, period. Can't really disagree with him on that because he is absolutely right. No quarterback that is typically a run-first guy. And Lamar can throw the ball. He's just not Patrick Mahomes. He's not any of these guys. Is he a, quote, novelty item?
I think novelty item isn't really fair. Now, I've never thought, well, I've told you before, he's a good regular season quarterback, and that's exactly what we saw. He further proved it this year. Now, to be completely fair to this man, his completion percentage was the highest of his career this year. So he's throwing it. It seems to be throwing it better. Passing yards were the highest they've been in 4 years, I believe. But also, that's regular season. So I can see it both ways, but overall, I wouldn't say novelty act, but I don't think he's going to win a Super Bowl. So I will agree with JM there.
A lot of quarterbacks never won a Super Bowl. Really good quarterbacks. Hall of Famer quarterbacks. Space Ghost. I thought I was going to be able to bring you, and by the way, you can text us 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. I thought I was going to be able to bring you the high points today. Talking about his article. We're watching my son's dog, and he ate half the article, hopefully tomorrow. Is he serious about this, or is he now just playing with us?
Normal people, I would think that they're just messing with us. But Space Ghost seems like he's the kind of guy who gets himself in these weird situations like that.
He also sends this in. The ministry of ungentle manly warfare. What is he talking about? This movie has the guy that played Reacher, the guy that played Superman, and many others look good. Looks like a good movie. I don't know if it's on Netflix or Prime or in theaters only. Is he talking about this movie, this Roadhouse movie? Is that what he's talking about? What is ungentle, manly warfare? What is he doing?
Okay, so he speaks of Alan Richardson, who's also a ripped beast. He's Reacher. Henry Cavill, that's your guy.
Yep.
Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Billed as a true story about a secret British World War II organization. Nope, you just lost me. The movies based around that time, they don't really get me.
Well, around which time?
World War II?
You couldn't envision yourself in that part of history? Walking the streets of L.A. or Harlem or Chicago or with a hat on your head? I mean, they didn't wear shorts back then.
Let's see. Well, there's why I don't want to be there.
Chief Shooting Bull. What if, he's talking about East Metro Parkway, Beaver and the people you saw. What if they're programmed spirits that just departed flights and are set on a mission? I don't even know what he's doing with that. That's what you were looking for, right? I think that's the kind of response you were looking for. Let's see here. And let's see. J-Rock. He says, dude was walking East Metro Parkway last night. Beaver, did you see this?
Yeah. Okay, see, Chief Shooting Bull and J-Rock. Now you guys are with what I'm looking for. Because that's a picture of a big old alien in some woods.
So you're going to be looking on your way in tonight, aren't you?
Yep.
What are you going to do if you see something like that on East Metro?
Well, I don't know. East Metro, now that I think about it, okay. Let me tell you a quick tale that happened on East Metro. Back in, it was still during the John Wiener regime here. So I guess that was I'd say it was 2015. I made a tactical error. Jake, I feel like 9 years later I can say this. It was a dumb choice. For some reason, because Wiener was doing that later show. Remember when he did that loose 6 to 7 show back then?
Yeah.
So one night, for some reason, I decided I'm going to bring my Ambien with me. I wanted to get to sleep quick, apparently, because I took it before I left this parking lot. Okay, I live in Pearl. It's 30 minutes away. I'm not kidding you. You know, East Metro, this is way before it was cleared out, just tons of trees. I was driving down East Metro. I started seeing something in the sky above that tree line. You know what it was?
An airplane?
It was a massive version of Hugh Kellenberger. I'm not making this up one bit. I saw Hugh Kellenberger walking amongst the tree line. So maybe now that we're looking back, now that we're seeing what's happening, now that it's actually cleared out, that might have been real. That might not have been an Ambien-induced fever. Think about it. Now it's coming full circle. It's all tying together. Something about that road.
Why a massive Hugh Kellenberger?
I have no idea. I didn't know at the time either.
I am speechless. Absolutely speechless. Hey, we're brought to you by Matt at the MT Insurance Group. Let him shop rates for you today on your auto, home, and business. 601-594-3540. We'll get Mike Grace coming up here in a bit. If you're heading down East Metro Parkway, watch out for those large Hugh Kellenbergers. Back in St. Louis, Missouri.
Ladies and gentlemen,
the time has come to go back.
Back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly. With the hottest sports stories of the day.
for one of those moments, it only happens
Right here.
On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Taking you home on a Tuesday. We're streaming on the zone1059.com. Brought to you by Clinton Body Shop. 601-924-2159. OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust. Just go to ClintonBodyShop.com to learn more today. Your family's safety and your car's value. It matters at Clinton Body Shop. You can find us on the Clinton Body Shop X feed at Jake Wim. You can also find Pressbox Radio 1 on X. Give them a follow. Mike Grace. He is Mr. Pressbox himself. Of course, you can hear them every night here, Monday through Friday, 8 p.m. to 10. He joins us to talk a little SEC sports. Mike, welcome in, sir. How are you?
I am great. I am pumped for some Egg Bowl basketball tonight, man.
How about that? I mean, what's your thoughts so far? I mean, we got a long way to go. We're about to hit the turn here on the second half of the season. I mean, it's going quick. But when you look at these two programs, Mississippi State with a big win over the weekend, Ole Miss, they've had big wins as well. We're talking to a lot of people like you are about how deep is this league. Is it 6, 7, 8, 9? We'll see what the NCAA tournament kind of rolls out. But looking at the matchup tonight and then looking at these two programs, your thoughts so far on State and Ole Miss?
Well, is this going to be the biggest game ever at the Pavilion? I mean, this is huge tonight with State coming off their back-to-back wins or 2 wins, at least in January, over top 5 teams in Auburn and Tennessee, or top 10 teams, I guess. But they have yet to win on the road at all this season. They got 6 neutral site wins, Jake, but have yet to win a true road game. 0-3 in the league on the road, and really haven't even been competitive. On the other side, you got Ole Miss that's unbeaten inside the Pavilion this year, and new life under Chris Beard. I'm expecting the place to be rocking tonight. It should be a whole lot of fun to watch.
Mike Grace on your radio, Tuesday edition of the program. Make sure to find them on X. Check out their show. You can get it right here at 8 o'clock tonight. Mike, when you look at the SEC as a whole, is this the deepest that you can remember this league has been?
Man, it's hard to say it's not. I mean, look, we've had years, the last couple of years, where Bama's been number 1 in the country. We don't have a team that high this season, but when you look at the quantity of quality that is up and down this league, Ole Miss is the perfect example, Jake. This team was at the basement of the league a year ago. They're 17-3 now, 4-3 in the league. They're just coming off their first ever win at Texas A&M. Never had Ole Miss won a basketball game at Texas A&M until this past weekend. So I just think up and down the line, you can't take anything for granted, and it's why for both clubs tonight, for State to try to steal a win, and for Ole Miss to protect that home court advantage. It's a big game for both clubs.
You talked about Mississippi State, and it will be interesting to see if a trend is bucked one way or the other. Ole Miss 12-0 at home, State 0-4 on the road, but they are 6-0 on neutral sites. And sometimes this thing goes tit for tat between State and Ole Miss. A lot of splitting. You get back into Rick Stansberry, and when he was at Mississippi State, they owned that series. But who do you like tonight in this ballgame?
Well, I mean, I like State if they can do a couple of things. The first thing they got to do is avoid the letdown. I mean, coming off the big win over Auburn, I think Chris Jans will do a good job of getting those guys back. Enjoy that win, but you got to flush it. And then you got to do what you've been doing. So the strength of this team is defense and rebounding. Those things should travel. You just got to find a little offense every now and then. And look, the free throws thing, they're a must, man. They didn't cost this team on Saturday when they hit some key ones down the stretch versus Auburn, but they were still just 9 of 18, just 50% from the stripe. And you got to do better than that if you want to win anywhere on the road in this league.
Mike, we'll have SEC baseball, college baseball. First pitch starts here in a little over 2 weeks on the 16th of February. You look at the SEC, again, nationally, just front-loaded from Florida, Arkansas, LSU, all getting, garnering attention nationally. Vanderbilt, top 10 type teams, Texas A&M. You look at what Alabama did last year. It's hard to believe South Carolina that Mississippi State and Ole Miss we're not that far removed from back-to-back national championships in this state. But this league is so tough and it is so deep. What defines success for both State and Ole Miss this year in baseball? And especially for Chris Lemonis, you could make the case for Mike Bianco. Where do they need to be coaching at these universities in 2025?
The past 2 seasons for Lemonis and Starkville have been the kind of years that State fans aren't used to. Well, let's just face that. Baseball fans in Starkville aren't used to the last 2 seasons. Coming off that national championship, that bought Lemonis a lot of goodwill. You wonder if that's going to be running out this year if they can't come up with a winning record in league play and get back to the tournament, at least make a decent showing in that regard. And again, I think for Ole Miss, they still got a little bit of room because their national championship came a year later than State's. But still, you expect these 2 programs to be near the top of the SEC. But gosh, you're right, Jake. It's so loaded from top to bottom, man. There's just no easy weekend in SEC play at all.
Let's pivot over to football, get your thoughts on a couple things while I got just a few minutes here. Let's stay in the state of Mississippi and go back to Oxford. We all know about Lane Kiffin and what he's been able to do in the transfer portal. Depending on the outlet, they're going to be somewhere 19, 20, 21 in recruiting. But the portal is where, they have made their money, no pun intended. And you look at, obviously, the loss of Quinshon Judkins, but so many players they have picked up. And here recently, They pick up a big offensive lineman, from the University of Washington, who played 13 ball games. This has been fascinating to watch. Actually, 2 offensive linemen from the University of Washington. Now, to see Lane Kiffin build this roster, and the expectations are as high as I can remember in Oxford.
Has this guy figured out the recruiting pitch, the new recruiting deal? I mean, whether it's his social media presence, whatever it is, I don't know. But he's got it going down, and coming to the SIP is the new thing. The guy's come so close in years past. It's time for him to take that next step. I saw a recent ranking of SEC football coaches, and he was right below the top 2 guys. This guy had listed Brian Kelley and Kirby Smart, obviously. Kirby at number 1, Brian Kelley at number 2 as championship elite guys. But then Lane was in that next group of one step away. They are so close, and with the field expanding to a 12-team playoff this year, should be a great opportunity for Ole Miss to be in that playoff and try to make some true postseason noise. You mentioned the recruits they're bringing in. How about the home run hire? Bringing Joe Cox in as the new tight ends coach is huge. A former Nick Saban assistant in Alabama, a guy that Saban glowingly talked about. He's already recruiting in his home state of North Carolina, looking for more of those studs that Lane Kiffin's been putting together. And the thing that I love seeing today, Jake, how about Lane Kiffin, 3 years alcohol-free today, a really heartfelt social media post earlier. I know he catches a lot of flack sometimes for his social media stuff, but anybody who's got a history of alcoholism and personal or in their family, something like that, knows what a bear that can be. And you got to be happy for Lane Kiffin. And for a state guy to feel good about Lane Kiffin, that's a stretch for this guy, but I'm doing it.
No, there's no doubt about it. I mean, hats off to Lane Kiffin for that. That is a very tough deal to battle, and he's been open and honest about it. And I hope that he continues down that path. Hey, let me stay at the transfer portal, and we'll get you out of here on this question here. Speaking of the transfer portal, we've talked about Alabama, Kalen DeBoer coming in, the Alabama guys transferring out. Mike, they've got almost 30 guys, 29 guys in the portal out. They've brought 6 in. They'll get a few more of those guys. They'll get some guys back in on the second short window after spring practice. Last year, they had somewhere around 22, 23 guys and only 7 or 8 in. That I don't know that we're focusing on this enough, but that depth in Alabama, boy, it is really, really just deteriorated over the last 2 years.
And look, there are folks who believe that Kalen DeBoer was the perfect hire, the perfect guy to try to replace Nick Saban. You're not going to replace him, but to follow him. But Jake, I'm with you. I don't care, especially with all the transfer portal news as you mentioned. How does this program not take a step back? I mean, I don't think there's anyone that could step in and do what Saban has done. So, Bama fans are optimistic. They love the hire. They're behind Kalen DeBoer. I just really wonder. It's going to be tough, especially with the expanded SEC, that Texas and Oklahoma program coming in. But good luck, Kalen DeBoer. You need to go find you some players because you got a tough league to compete in.
Lastly, DJ Durkin to Auburn. Good hire, bad hire? Got to wait and see.
Man, got to wait and see. It's a name that's out there, been out there, the former Maryland head coach. He's got his experience in the SEC. He's got his experience with Hugh Freeze. It's interesting to me to see how Freeze does kind of manage the turnover in his staff. I mean, to turn so much turnover after just one season, you wonder if maybe having Carnell and Zach Etheridge, the other 2 Auburn guys there, just they weren't his guys. So is this him, moving those guys out, getting his guys in? If so, and either way, I mean, the guy needs to win this year. Last year was a so-so year for Auburn, but they're not going to stand for that for very long. Make sure to find them on X at Pressbox Radio 1. That's Pressbox Radio 1. Go to PressBoxRadio.com to grab the show. You can always hear it right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, 8 to 10. You'll get that tonight as well. Well, after Mississippi State basketball concludes as well. Mike, I appreciate your time as always. Look, have a great rest of the week. Enjoy the ball games. We'll talk soon. Hey, man, and if I can, a quick plug for the show. We got some fun. Bruce Pearl is with us inside the press box tomorrow, coming up on Thursday. We've got the Jim Nagy, executive director of the Senior Bowl, and Friday, Ian Eagle, fresh off the AFC Championship game call on Westwood One and getting ready for the international call of Super Bowl 58, will join us Friday inside the press box. Very good. Very good. Mike, thanks so much. We appreciate it. We'll talk soon. Thanks, guys. Thanks so much. We're brought to you by the MHSAA. Head over to the website to learn more today. MISSHSAA.com, 601-924-6400.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's talking about anything and everything that's Mississippi sports.
No, great afternoon.
Right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online worldwide on thezone1059.com.
Appreciate Mike Grace jumping in on the press box, or from the press box, talking SEC basketball, a little baseball, and some football recruiting. We are streaming on the zone1059.com, brought to you by our friends at Williams Newman Williams. When you need a win, car wreck, truck accident, nursing home neglect, online at WNWlegal.com. All right, let's see here. On the Cowboy Maloney's text line, ready, Teddy. Conor Gregor is playing the role of Jimmy in the movie. There you go. Remember Jimmy?
Is he the one that Swayze got that throat rip on?
I think so. I think. Monkeys riding dogs. He wants to know, is that where you got your ticket? The East Metro Parkway.
Oh, sure was.
I don't know that you need to be traveling East Metro Parkway now that these stories are coming out.
Yeah. When you put them together, it doesn't sound... And I got to pick another route, though.
Well, that means you would just leave here, go down County Line and hit 55, go south 55, 20 and over.
No, thanks. I don't go down County Line.
Well, then go back Lake Harbor, back around to Target and hit 55 that way.
I will take my chances on East Metro.
You are such a creature of habit. You're not doing that. It's a nice ride back that way, though.
What's a nice ride on East Metro when you're not fueled up on ambies and seeing people materialize out of nowhere with dogs and such?
Yeah, that's kind of weird.
Hugh Kellenbergers?
Yeah, that's exactly right. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Steelers ownership still believes in quarterback Kenny Pickett. Do they really? Every Pittsburgh Steelers season seems to be the same lately. They play good defense alongside subpar offense, win between 8 to 10 games. If they make the playoffs, they're bounced in the first round. Most of the problems can be chalked up to poor quarterback play. The end of legend Ben Roethlisberger's career was not his best part, and since then the team has struggled to find even league average quarterback play. The team drafted Kenny Pickett with the 20th overall pick in the 2022 draft out of Pitt to be the long-term solution at the position following Big Ben. But in 2 seasons, he hasn't shown any indication that he has the ability to be the guy. Pickett has just 13 touchdowns and 13 interceptions in 24 career starts. Think about that. First-round guy, 13-13, 24 starts. And his touchdown rate is the lowest in NFL history among qualified quarterbacks. Yes, he's won 14 of those starts, but the Steelers' offense has been awful in basically every game he started. Pickett's lack of production was magnified when Mason Rudolph came in at the end of the season after Pickett's injury and played well. The offense looked much better under the veteran, putting Kenny Pickett's job security in doubt. But at Monday's end-of-the-season press availability for team owner Art Rooney II, he gave a pretty big endorsement of Kenny Pickett. According to the official website of the Pittsburgh Steelers, quote, "We still feel good about Kenny Pickett and his future," said Rooney. He knows he needs to work. He knows he needs to work hard to take the next step. We've talked about that. One of the things I think we like about Kenny in terms of his career was how hard he worked, and he took a step every year. We're looking forward to that happening here. That's an important component of the next coordinator, making sure he helps Kenny take the next step. With that being said, can't discount what Mason did, said Rooney. Can't discount the fact that having competition will be good for everybody. Mason came in and showed, I think, what we're capable of when we get quality play at the quarterback position. Appreciate what Mason did. We're interested in bringing back Mason. That's a very weird endorsement to go on a team website, isn't it? I would say that Art Rooney doesn't believe in either one of these guys. What do you think?
No, it doesn't sound like it.
Do you believe in Kenny Pickett?
I don't, and I wanted to. Our sales guy here, Sean, big Steelers fan, and I gave him so much false hope leading into the season. I told him the Steelers were going to be good. I said, believe in Pickett. And he kept telling me, no, man. I'm like, this is your team. And then at the end of the season, I apologized to him. I led you astray.
So you think they'll be looking for a quarterback in 2025?
I think they need to look for a quarterback in in 3 months during the draft.
Well, it sounds like Art Rooney II, is it?
Because Tomlin, he came out a few weeks ago, and he did say, it was two or 3 weeks ago, he did say that Kenny Pickett is quarterback one going into the season, but he will have competition. So that sounds like they're expecting to go get another quarterback.
Or they expect Mason Rudolph to finally materialize. What did I just call him?
Rooftop. Mason Rooftop.
Rooftop, Murdoch, whatever. Tom Brady speaks out on taking Greg Olson's job on NFL broadcast. Have you seen this?
Yeah.
Because, we were talking about Olson yesterday. Tom Brady is coming for Greg Olson's broadcast job on Fox, and NFL fans are none too happy about it. Brady is set to move into the broadcasting booth for the first time next season after signing a ridiculous 10-year, $375 million deal with Fox Sports soon after his retirement in early 2023. But the legendary quarterback is aware he'll have big shoes to fill, and he addressed the matter on Tuesday's episode of the Pat McAfee Show. Quote, "I've been out to the Fox studios a few times, and I'm really excited to join an amazing team. Greg Olson does an incredible job, and I have so much respect for him. I'm going to go in there and do the best that I can with my own perspective." And he continues on, and he says, I think he does an incredible job every time he's on. I love listening to him, and I'm just going to go in there and do the best I can with my own perspective. It doesn't say that he said much of anything else, but it really doesn't speak of taking his job. Or did you hear something different?
No, that's all I saw is those quotes, how much he respects the job he's doing, all that, blah, 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 blah. And he didn't say anything wrong, but it's just the fact that you've done nothing. I mean, as far as broadcasting, you've done absolutely nothing, and you're walking in and taking this man's job he just skyrocketed the last few years and is universally doing, I think most people say he's doing an awesome job. And the fact that you just get to walk in because you're Tom Brady and take that's the problem.
No, I think you're right. And again, where does that leave Olson? We said yesterday, maybe NBC. Could it be Amazon?
Well, they got their little team.
Who was on that team?
I can't even remember. Herb Street and can't remember.
601-885-3776. If you missed it, that is the Cowboy Millennials text line. If you missed it earlier, Tennessee in trouble with the NCAA over recruiting violations. We'll see where that goes. And, of course, it's very, very vague. As SEC Mike says, the NCAA coming after Tennessee is just the latest evidence that he says that Nico Iamaleava must be amazing. Barrett Slee says no notice of allegations or specifics on the sports involved. Let's hold off on the downfall of Tennessee takes for now. We're brought to you by Bailey Lumber. Go to BaileyLumber.com for more information. Open Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. I'm sorry. What's that?
Oh, it was Al Michaels. I'm so sorry, forgot Al Michaels.
Where is he?
Michaels and Herb Street.
That's who it is. That's who it is. Yeah, BaileyLumber.com is the website. Brandon location, 2150 Mississippi Highway 471, 4525 John Lynch Street in Jackson. GAF Roofing Specials, lumber, supplies, windows, and doors. Go to BaileyLumber.com.
Okay, we're back. I'm ready. It's more of the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's live and local on Jackson Sports Authority, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Waze Energy Drinks. A portion of the proceeds for Waze Energy goes to the Gary Sinise Foundation, a great zero-sugar, high-caffeine drink. Go to WazeEnergy.com to learn more today about the Rescue, Revive, Engage, and Respond. Find it in multiple locations around Central Mississippi. Go to Facebook.com/Waze Energy to learn more today. We're also brought to you by Ranco Transmission, 1460 Old Brandon Road in Flowood, 601-939-9184, 50-plus years foreign and domestic. Let's go to Louisville. George, welcome in, sir.
How we doing, Jake?
So far, so good.
Good deal. A couple of things. On the Brady thing, he can kiss my Okay,
Big toe.
I didn't get kicked off. Yeah, that too. The one thing you all didn't say in this last little thing about whatever about him is the amount of money that they're paying him to, and he doesn't need a dime. To me, that's a big deal too. If he was the class act, he would handle this differently, but I'll leave that alone. The Steelers. This is a Steeler fan. Okay? Before Terry Bradshaw, back in the day. Couple of things. One, y'all were talking about quarterbacks being able to play in the 80s. There's no way. Bradshaw got a tooth knocked out and went out for one play. That was when men were men. Now I'm not sure what they are. Sorry, Patrick Mahomes. Let's see. I'll come back to my Steelers. On the Kansas City-Baltimore game, and I'd love to hear your take because I have a feeling I know where it's going to go. Mahomes didn't win that freaking game. Not at all. He did enough to secure the win for them, but the defense and the miscues by the Ravens is what lost the game, not Patrick Mahomes. The Steelers, let Trubisky go, or let him and Rooftop. Start calling him Rooftop now. I like that. That means he's high up there, right?
Absolutely.
Jake said it here.
That's
January, what is it, January 30th?
That's it.
He said the Rooftop's the limit for Mason. Anyway, let the three of them battle it out. Trubisky will go to somebody or just whatever. And I am satisfied with Rudolph. And I say that because of what he did at the end. And then you could come back and say, well, look what he did, in the game, the playoff game. However, he had not had very much time with those receivers at all. That pick in the end zone, receiver cuts to the inside. It was clearly clear that Rudolph was going to the outside, and that's where he threw the ball, and that's just not playing together very much. They were very conservative under him, as far as play calling and all, and he stood in the pocket. I don't know. I'm a Steeler guy. Our defense will be fine. Save the draft pick for somebody else, another need somewhere, and that's how a Steeler fan or this Steeler fan looks at it. Now tell me what you think about Patty Boy. Bye.
See ya. I'm assuming he's calling Patty Boy Mahomes. I like Mahomes. I mean, here's the thing. The Chiefs are better now than maybe they were last year when they won it. I mean, defensively, they've got a defense that's really good. They run the ball pretty well. It doesn't have to all fall on Mahomes' shoulder, does it? I mean, he's going to make plays when plays need to be made. So, and I do, sorry, Beav, not because of Taylor Swift. I actually I'm pulling for the 49ers, but I lean Kansas City to win. Is that fair? That's where I'm going here. All right, let's see here. Maurice, please, Kenny Pickett. What?
I think he meant keep Kenny Pickett, because remember, Maurice is a Ravens fan.
Right. Okay, I got you. Yeah, Lyle says Al Michaels and PT for MSU. Does GAF make anyone giggle like a 13-year-old girl like I do? Or 13-year-old like I do? Probably not. Does it make you giggle?
It doesn't at all, PT.
Let's see here. We got just a few minutes left. Did I miss anything? Do you have any news you need to get out?
I don't think so.
Are you going to be paying attention on East Metro Parkway?
Well, yeah, of course. You got to pay attention, especially out there.
Well, did you know that scientists have created robots that can walk through water using lab-grown muscle tissues? Yeah. Yeah, according to some research here published by the journal Matter, robots these scientists have created is what they call a biohybrid robot. Biohybrid robot that can walk through water using lab-grown muscle tissues in its legs. It has cultural skeletal muscle tissue and has achieved fine-tuned turning motions and forward and stop motions. And their first such bipedal robot to have mastered, it's the first one to have mastered these skills. There are some limitations. For one, it is only 3 centimeters tall, Second, it needs a foam buoy to assist in standing upright in the water tank. And it also travels at a speed of just 5.4 millimeters per minute, so it's very slow. But Beaver, the fact that they are trying, why are they trying to create these robots that walk in water?
Another quote-unquote advancement in robot technology. There's nothing else we can say at this point. We've been looking at this crap, about 5 years now?
Yep.
They keep on making these robots better, smarter, more capable of murdering us. It's not a good idea.
Yeah, we've been trying to keep the people abreast of the whole robot situation, or as you call them, the robot. We'll continue to do so because we want you to watch out. You may see one on East Metro Parkway. Space Ghost, Beaver, mount a dash cam to record your fine. Oh, mount a dash cam. He wants you to have a dash cam on your Vista going to the Parkway. Is that a good idea?
No, I don't think so. What if there's something really neat out there? What if there really is a big Kellenberger in the sky? Someone's got to document that.
That's just still wild. The large Hugh Kellenberger. And let's see here. Notre Dame transfer quarterback Riley Leonard has been ruled out for winter workouts after having ankle surgery earlier this month. He might still be out for the start of spring practice, but he'll be fine for the year. And that's a big get. We forget about that. Riley Leonard, transfer quarterback from Duke to Notre Dame. Also, Tennessee responding this afternoon as their chancellor, Donde Plowman, responds to the NCAA. Tennessee is not going to take this thing lightly. And nearly 3 weeks ago, Caleb Downs was delivered the news that Nick Saban was retiring now in Columbus. Expectations are the same, and Saban's lessons will stick with him. Quote, taught me a lot about commitment, being disciplined, and consistency. I don't know that that's the right way I would frame that up if I was him. He said, Nick Saban taught me about commitment, yet he left and went to Ohio State. These guys, they don't think before they speak, do they? Yeah, Nick Saban taught me a lot about commitment, being disciplined, and consistency. And when he retired, the first thing I did is took 183 phone calls and then left for Ohio State. Thanks to David Murray, Kelly Ford, and Mike Grace. Get the podcast on all the platforms. Just search Jake Wimberly Show. Remember, ketchup is king. Bacon's a delicacy. Aloha means goodbye. It'll be Wednesday. We'll see you then. Good night.